Hello everyone, I'm International Master Siddharth Ravichandran and welcome to Chess Hours. In today's video, we are going to look at all the games played between Magnus Carlsen and Hans Niemann from a pure chess perspective. And at the end of this video, I will give you my personal opinion on this cheating controversy that is going on. So please stay tuned. Earlier in September 2022, Carlsen resigned on move 2 in the Julius Baer Cup, and a week earlier, he withdrew from the Sinkfield Cup after losing to Hans Niemann and released a controversial tweet. On 23rd September 2022, FIDE President Arkady Dvorkovich released a statement. In his statement, he says that Carlsen could have handled it better than this, and his actions could be damaging to the game. He also added that FIDE, on the other hand, will be engaging specialists to look into the cheating problem and ensure that the game is played fairly. Also, a thorough investigation will take place on this incident, and the players are asked to disclose the information at their disposal. In response to this, Carlsen gave the following statement. This was given by him on 26th September 2022. He agrees that his actions could have been better. He believes that Niemann has cheated earlier as well, and he considered withdrawing when he knew Niemann was playing the Sinkfield Cup. Niemann's over-the-board progress is unusual, and the way he defeated Carlsen in Sinkfield Cup firmly made him believe that Niemann cheated. He is not willing to play chess with Niemann. Currently, there are 11 tournament games played between Carlsen and Hans Niemann, and there are also a few online games played between these two. So let's start with the online games played between them. So the first one is a bullet game, which was played between Carlsen and Niemann, and this was played in the year 2018 when Niemann was still an iron. So let's go ahead and look at it.
Ah, it's still messed up. Okay. Never mind. How is they gonna castle kingside? Showing little to no respect. It's gonna go g3, knight f4. Don't know what I'm doing here, but whatever. I think this is actually really bad. Oh, he took with the queen! That's a shame. Okay, now I'm obviously lost. What should I do here? There's just no counterplay. Is there? Okay, I cannot allow the exchange of queens. But I have to? Ugh. I'm gonna lose this game for sure. Just no counterplay. That was a bit of an unfortunate lapse there. My only chance is that he's gonna get too nervous here. Okay. Bishop 3. I feel a glimmer of hope here. Not much though. Not much. Not much. Oh, he does this again. This guy is no fun. Doesn't want me to have any hope in this life or the next. Okay. Yeah, this was really bad. Pre-move error.
Well, that was a bullet game, and we saw that Carlsen was losing his first game against Niemann. This was a bullet match, so we should not consider it too seriously, but we definitely know about Niemann's skills. Let's look at the next Blitz game between Carlsen and Niemann. So in this game, Niemann was playing white and Carlsen is playing black.
Technical difficulties there. Okay, d4, I'm gonna go knight c6. Knight f6. Okay, knight b8, it's the reversed so-called Fresine opening. which is oh, it's not actually reversed, that's it. Whatever. Mirrored probably, right? Okay, goes bishop g5, which I find a bit weird. Especially with the bishop on h4, I don't think it belongs there. Castles, c6 I guess, preparing. I'm not so worried about bishop f6, I can go ef6 there. Probably should have been. Never mind. Queen a5. Knight d7. g4. I'm not really sure what he's trying to do. I guess I'll find out soon enough. Knight c5. Preparing a little trick for him. Oh, he sighed. The trick was that I was threatening knight f4 and then knight e4 could go queen b6, and if knight c3 back, knight e4. That would have been quite tasty. The position feels really good, but I don't know quite how to. Queen b6 is a one move threat. I don't think I should do that. Yeah, so he goes g5, trying to create at least something. I'm gonna switch to more positional. Maybe I could have gone bishop f6. Take it. Bishop f5. Feels like I'm considerably better here though. His attack is still far away, and rook c8 is an annoying move for him to meet. It's the exchange sack here with rook c3 is a huge threat. Yeah, once again, decisions. I'm gonna go ef6. Okay, I actually gotta calculate something. ef6, queen d2, rook c3, queen c3, queen c3, bishop e4, rook e1. That doesn't work. So what can I do after ef6, queen d2? I don't actually see anything. If that's true, that's a serious blow to my chances here. Okay, I'm gonna take with the bishop down at knight d4 now. He gets. d7. I'm worried about his counterplay with h4, h5. Okay, gonna nip that in the bud. Sack the exchange. But now I'm probably worse. Okay, g5. At least not getting mated quite yet. Trying to exchange queens. Okay, I'm gonna exchange queens. I know that, like, giving up that bishop is not great, but my remaining bishop is still pretty nice. f4 g4, I'm not sure I should have done that. Now I'm getting some potentially very serious passers. e5, if fe5, d5. Yeah, he's completely misplayed this now. King h5, bishop c6, bring the king around, king f4, bishop f3, e4. My position pretty much plays itself at this point. The only question is, can I do it in time? But I should have plenty. Okay. Rook h8 is coming. Just gonna hurt. Oh, yeah, I gotta go king e3 first. And then rook h1. I'm gonna take this one, I'm gonna take this. These pawns are far from queening. Okay.
Magnus Carlsen was in a bad situation, but he just sacrificed his exchange and he complicated the issue and later transformed it to a winning endgame. So again, Carlsen is the master of endgames, so you never want to trade your queens against him. So the next one is also a Blitz game played between Carlsen and Niemann, and let's go ahead and look at it.
And then I'm gonna take a break. Or maybe 2 more games, I don't know. Let's see what he does against e4. The French Really? What has he got in store here? Kind of like this line for Blitz. Take it, bishop d2. Oh, this is what he does. Knight c3? I mean, I'm just making this up over the board, but I don't think it's too bad. Queen b6, I go a3. Bishop moves away, I go knight a4. It seems like I got an excellent position. Rook c1 now. Bishop b5. Rook e1, I'm maybe just allowing e5. Should go knight c5 instead then. e5, bishop b4, rook moves. Okay, I'm gonna play it simple because I cannot calculate till the end. So he gets to exchange some pieces here, but he's clearly worse. B4, I think. Taking some squares. Rook c5. Many good moves there. Rook g5. I'm allowing bishop e6. I don't want to do that. With such a weak king, he can't really hope for much with his passed pawn, I think. Okay. This is a stupid move, but whatever. Yeah, that's what I was hoping for. Queen f3, and I think the game is over. Oh, it's actually not. He has got bishop b6. That's pretty lucky. That is just really, really lucky. Okay, whatever. Oh, I got queen e4 maybe. Oh, then rook f8. No. I think he got lucky and he lives to see another day. Okay, he resigned. Okay, so...
Well, that was a really nice game by Carlsen. He was better from the start and he converted to a smooth victory. And at the end, we can notice some excellent tactics by Carlsen, and he was able to spot the defense for his opponent as well. But unfortunately, Niemann did not see the defense and he resigned. We are done with the online games now, and let's move on to the tournament games played between these two. The first tournament game between Carlsen and Niemann was played in the Add Things Masters tournament in February 2022. In this game, Niemann plays white and Carlsen plays with the black pieces. So let's go ahead and look at the game. So Niemann starts with c4, Carlsen plays g6, knight c3, c5. So they start with the English opening, and knight f3, bishop g7, e3. So this is all part of standard stuff. So I'll be pausing only at the important moments so that we can understand what exactly is going on. So this is just normal opening. So in this position, black might play the move d5 to prevent white from pushing his own pawn to d5, but Carlsen castles over here. And Niemann finds something odd about this, and Niemann pushes his own pawn to d5. White tries to gain more space in the center. So Carlsen hits back at the center with e6. Niemann goes bishop e2, and pawn takes one, and pawn to d6. And Niemann goes h3 to prevent any bishop g4 or knight g4. And Carlsen plays rook to e8. Niemann castles, knight bd7. And Niemann plays bishop to e3. And in this position, Carlsen plays an incredible move. He plays Rook takes e3, sacrificing the rook for the bishop. F takes e3. What is black getting in return for the exchange sacrifice? The answer is not so straightforward. First, he creates a weak pawn on e3. Second, the square e5 has now become an outpost. White will not be able to push any piece which sits on e5 with f4 because the pawn has come to e3. And third, the dark squares near white's king are a little bit weak. You can see that g3, h2, these squares in particular seem a bit weak. The fourth one we see is that the black bishop does not have a counterpart, so its potential has increased greatly. And fifth, it is actually much easier to play with the black pieces. Just by looking at it, the moves flow naturally for black. Knight c5, queen e7, bishop f5, rook e8, bishop h6. Whereas if you look at it from the white side, it's not too clear what exactly white is going to do here because the targets are not fixed for black. So yeah, overall, this is a very good exchange sacrifice. The computers still think it's equal, but yeah, in a practical game, black definitely has the better chances. So let's go ahead and see how the game continues. So Carlsen played queen e7, king h2, knight c5, queen here, and bishop to d7. So Carlsen is just developing all his pieces normally. Bishop d3, rook e8, rook a e1, and bishop h6. So all the black pieces are placed well, and they are putting pressure on the e3 pawn. And Niemann goes b4, and the knight has to go towards the center. So Carlsen plays knight here, bishop takes, knight takes, and Niemann plays queen to d4. And in this position, Carlsen played knight takes c3, but Stockfish says that that is a much stronger move for black. Black can actually play the move f5 over here, and Stockfish gives the following variation. So white can play knight takes e4, f takes e4, knight d2, bishop g7, queen c4, and queen to h4. And now black is threatening to play bishop e5 followed by queen g3. So it gives the move king g1, and when black plays bishop to e5, remember you cannot take on e4 because bishop h2 is coming, but white can actually play the move knight to f3. And black can play the move b5 over here. And for b5, it gives this amazing move queen to d4. And after bishop takes d4, knight takes h4, and bishop e5, it gives g4, bishop g3, knight g2, takes, and king g7. And it concludes that this position is equal. But for a human to look at all these things, that would be totally impossible. But yeah, overall, f5 is much better move than the move knight takes e3, which Carlsen played. Let's continue. So white played queen takes e3, and Carlsen played bishop b5, rook f2, bishop g7, queen c2, and h5. And actually, we noticed that quite a few pieces have been exchanged, and Stockfish actually considers this position to be very good for white. It gives an evaluation of +2. However, it is not so easy for humans to exactly prove the computer evaluation. Niemann plays a4. The computer says e4 is a much better move. A4, and Carlsen goes bishop to d7, and now he goes e4 and rook c8. So queen b3, and the rook enters with a tempo. So rook c3, queen d1, and black has good activity over here. And now the computer suggests pawn to g5 over here, and it is supposed to be very strong. The idea is to push forward with g4, and then you can go bishop e5, queen h4, and all sorts of threats appear. However, Carlsen is also a human being. Instead of going g5 over here, he went rook to c4. He's just attacking the pawns on the fourth rank. That's completely understandable. And Niemann played e5, d takes e5, and d6. Carlsen goes queen f6, queen d5, and rook to c6. Niemann goes queen takes e5, and queen takes d6. Queen takes d6, and rook takes d6. And now the queens are exchanged, and Stockfish says this position is just equal. However, Magnus, as usual, manages to trick Niemann and shows us his in-game tricks. Knight g5, bishop f6, knight e4, bishop e5 check, king here, rook d4. It's just about equal, but let's see how Carlsen tricks Niemann. Rook here, bishop takes a4, and now black has 2 pawns for the exchange. Rook takes, bishop takes, knight here. King 4, d5, rook e8 check, king here, and Niemann goes rook e7. Niemann is trying for some mating chances against the black king, and this is actually not so good because black wins the second pawn, and now the A and B pawns are ready to move forward. Rook takes f7, king h6, knight e4, and a5. It does look good for black, but however, remember, there are a lot of mating threats for the white pieces. So Niemann goes h4, and his threat is to play knight f6 or knight g5, and then rook h7 checkmate. So Carlsen goes bishop b3, attacking the rook. Rook goes to a7 and a4. Niemann goes g4 here. Threat is g5 checkmate. Carlsen does h takes, knight f6. Again, rook h7 is the threat. So Carlsen again plays the only move over here, g5, h5. And again, Carlsen actually hangs by a thread, but he is actually winning by playing bishop c2. Rook h7 is just prevented, and king g2, bishop c3. Check, king here. And again, rook h6 checkmate is threatened, but black can just leads bishop check, king here, and he just goes g3, king e3, and g2. And now Niemann just resigned. And the scores between the two players is 1-0 in favor of Carlsen. So let's go ahead to the next game. The second game was played in March 2022 in the Charity Cup tournament. Carlsen plays with white pieces and Niemann plays with black. For our sake, we will be looking at all the games from Carlsen's point of view. So let's flip it. Okay, so Carlsen goes e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6. They are playing the Royal Opus. Bishop a4, knight here, castles, knight takes e4, d4, b5. All this is standard theory. Bishop b3, d5, pawn takes pawn, bishop e6, c3, and bishop c5. And knight bd2, castles, and bishop c2. And here Niemann goes for this sacrifice with knight takes f2. So this is the main move in this position. And yeah, Niemann goes for it. Carlsen does rook takes. And in this position, there are a lot of games with the move f6. I feel f6 is slightly better because the rook on f2 is not running away. You can take the rook later on as well. But in this game, Niemann directly goes ahead and captures the rook first. Thus, bishop takes f2. Better move, I think, would have been the move f6 over here, so that you can capture the rook later. And this is the main move. But however, Niemann goes bishop takes f2 check. Carlsen just takes it back, f6. And now I feel there is a slight difference. Carlsen just takes his king and goes back. F takes e5, and Carlsen goes knight f1, queen d6, and bishop g5. Niemann goes e4, knight here, knight e5, knight e3, bishop d7, and in this position, Carlsen plays the move bishop to h4. And now Hans makes a blunder with the move queen to h6. This move seems very natural. Black is attacking the e3 knight and the bishop on h4, but it fails to a neat tactic, which Carlsen knows already, or he found it over the board. I do not know, but yeah. Instead of queen h6, the computer suggests the move on to c5, just kicking the knight away, and it gives the line bishop to b3, c takes d4, bishop takes d5 check, bishop e6, takes the rook, rook takes a8, queen takes, pawn takes, and knight to d3. And this position is equal. And Carlsen was able to trick Niemann into playing this move, queen to h6. And now we figure out why it's a blunder. For those of you who want to figure it out yourself, please click on the pause button. We now look at the solution played by Carlsen. Carlsen played this excellent move, knight to d5. Or you can even play the move knight ef5. Both moves are winning. You can even bring the other knight to f5. Okay, so Carlsen played this knight, and Niemann takes it, knight takes. And you cannot take with the rook takes f5 because queen takes d5, and then the rook on a8 will be under attack. So black cannot take the knight on f5. After knight takes f5, Niemann plays knight f3 check. And maybe Niemann had missed this move. He had seen only g takes f3, but Carlsen plays the brilliant move, queen takes f3. And this move ensures that white is winning. So Niemann goes queen check, and Carlsen does queen e3. rook takes f5, queen takes queen, pawn takes, and bishop f2. And white is just winning. Rook here, rook d1, attacking the e5 pawn, and rook d4. Now the threat is to play rook takes e4 check. And if black plays rook e5, then white has bishop to g3, winning both the rooks. So black is lost. Black plays king e7, takes, b4, takes, bishop takes b6, rook check, king here, check, and king g3. Rook takes b2, bishop here, and king e6, and bishop a5. And in this position, Niemann resigned. So now the score is 2-0 in favor of Carlsen. So let us move on to the next game. The third game between them was played in the Charity Cup, with Carlsen having the white pieces and Niemann having the black pieces. This was played in the 11th round. Carlsen starts with knight f3. Niemann plays d5, g3, g6, bishop g2, bishop g7, d4, knight f6. And this gets transposed to a neo-Grunfeld. It started out as a reti, but gets transposed to a neo-Grunfeld. Castles, and c4. Pawn to c6, b3, and bishop f5. Bishop b2, a6. All this is just normal opening development. So knight c3, knight bd7, e3, knight e4, rook c1, rook c8, and Carlsen goes queen e2. Niemann plays knight df6, knight e5, knight takes knight, bishop takes, knight e4, and bishop b2. Queen a5, f3, knight f6, and Carlsen plays e4. So just to quickly let you know, we are stopping at the most important positions and quickly moving through the other moves. Please don't mind me going too quickly on this. If you have any doubts, please feel free to pause the video whenever you want. So yeah, Carlsen goes e4, bishop e6, and knight e3. And white has the advantage thanks to the extra space. Black seems to be a bit cramped over here. So, bishop h6 was played by Niemann, bishop c3, queen here, rook c1, b6, knight f2, pawn takes pawn, and b5 was played. And in this position, Carlsen makes a mistake. The best move for white over here is to play the move pawn to c5. And white retains his space advantage. For example, after bishop c4, you can play knight d3. White is still better over here. But in the game, what happened was when Niemann played b5, Carlsen pushed the pawn to d5. And this allowed black to equalize. So Niemann played pawn takes pawn, and the bishop on c3 is handled. So rook takes c3 and pawn takes bishop. Queen c7. And Carlsen realizes that it's not so good for him to allow black pieces to come out. So he is willingly sacrificing his pawn and he plays the move f4 to shut out the bishop on h6 from the game. Niemann does pawn takes pawn and Carlsen goes e5. Excellent stuff. Niemann plays knight d5 and Carlsen regains his pawn back. And in this position, the most natural move, rook c2, would have equalized immediately. However, Niemann went for this unwanted piece sacrifice. He played the move bishop takes f4 and pawn takes and rook takes. Objectively, white is winning over here, but it is not so easy to find the exact moves for white. Carlsen played knight d3, rook takes f1, queen takes f1, rook c2, and queen f3. g7, knight f4, check, king here, check, knight e2, rook e1, king f2, and queen b1. And this position is actually winning for white, but in this position, Carlsen makes the final mistake of the game. Queen g2, stopping rook f1 would have won the game. So let me give you a sample line. So for example, black might play rook h1, white can play rook d4, queen e1 check, king e3, and rook f1, rook d7, attacking the pawn on e7, and black plays rook f7, white goes e6. And white is winning. However, in the game, Carlsen did not go queen g2. Instead, he played queen to d3. He was trying to trade off the queens, but Niemann played rook f1 check, king here, and queen to e1. And now Carlsen played e6, and this allowed a perpetual check. Queen check, king here, check, king here, check, king here. And now they agreed for a draw. So at the end of round 3, the score between Carlsen and Niemann is 2.5 in favor of Carlsen. Let's move on to the fourth game. Fourth game was played in the Charity Chess Cup round 12, with Niemann having the white pieces and Carlsen having the black pieces. So Niemann started with d4, d6, c4, and Carlsen goes f5. The Dutch defense, g3, knight f6, bishop g2, and Carlsen goes d5. And Carlsen plays the Dutch stonewall. The stonewall defense is not played at the high level, as the dark squares, especially the e5 square, becomes very weak. Let me point it out to you. This e5 square becomes very weak. And the black bishop on c8 is actually biting at its own pawns. And this is a very bad bishop. Black will have lots of trouble with this bishop. And because of these reasons, this line is not popular at the top level. However, these things apply only to normal grandmasters. These things do not apply to world champions. So Niemann plays knight f3, Carlsen goes bishop d6, castles. And in this position, normal move for white is to play the move pawn to b3, to the idea of going bishop to a3. And white is trading off this bishop for black's good bishop. However, Niemann did not do this. He played this move c5, which is not so good. This actually releases the tension in the center and allows black to continue with his plans. So Carlsen goes bishop e7, queen c2, knight c6. Niemann goes a3, trying to play b4, b5, but Carlsen stops it with a5. Niemann goes knight c3 and knight e4. And black has equalized. So Niemann goes rook b1, bishop f6, rook b1, bishop d7, and Niemann goes b4. That's the only plan for white. White does not have any other plan, so he goes b4. Carlsen captures it. They recapture, and bishop to e8. So yeah, the bishop is the bad bishop, so it is going all the way to h5 and maybe give itself for the knight. So here Niemann goes b5, and now we notice a very juicy square for the knight. Knight jumps to a5, and the knight is going to the c4 square. Niemann does knight d2, knight takes, knight queen takes, and knight c4. And black actually has a slight advantage over here thanks to his well-placed knight. Niemann does queen d3, c6, and d6. And in this position, Carlsen plays the best move for black in this position. However, I would not have definitely played this move. The move is e5. This move actually looks more suicidal because there are lots of threats like knight takes d5, pawn takes, bishop takes d5. But Carlsen has calculated it to perfection, and yeah, he just goes through it. Niemann does knight takes d5, c takes d5, pawn takes pawn, knight takes e5, and Niemann did queen takes. And as usual, Carlsen is happy to trade off the queens. Queen takes queen, bishop takes, and now Carlsen plays this excellent move, rook to f7. And now you understand what is going on. Black is ready to give off the exchange, but not the b7 pawn. So Niemann does bishop b2, and here Carlsen actually made a mistake. He played the move king f8. Actually, the move bishop c6 is the best move for black. Why? Because it blockades the pawn right away, and it wins the game. However, the move played by Carlsen was king f8. I'll tell you what's wrong with this move. So bishop takes, king takes, rook to d5, king e6, rook check, king e7. And now Niemann actually misses his chance. According to the computers, he could have equalized the game by playing the move rook to d5. So now you notice that the knight on e5 is attacked. So you go back king e6, check, king e7, rook d5. And so if black tries to play for a win with knight c6, white cannot play rook takes f5 because bishop g6 is coming and the rooks are getting pinned. But instead, white can play bishop takes f6, king takes f6, and simply f3, knight d8, and rook d6 check again. And when black plays king e7, white can play rook d3. And now the rook is going to come to e3 and give a check again. So the computer says that this position is just equal. But in this position, Niemann understandably plays the move rook to a1. And Carlsen trades off, takes, knight d7, bishop takes, knight takes, f3 was played, again a good move. And Carlsen goes bishop to c6. And again, in this position, once again, Stockfish says that white could have equalized by playing the move rook to d3. The idea behind this is when white plays knight d7, you give a check, you can defend the pawn, And when the king comes close by, you can give a check again. And you ensure that the king does not come close by. And when black goes king f7, you can go back to rook to c3. And after g6, this position is considered to be equal. And how when this position, Niemann makes just one small mistake. Instead of going to rook to d3, he goes rook to d2. And yeah, now we see what happens. Knight d7, rook c2, and king e6. However, Niemann does not get the chance to play rook e3 check, which we saw in the earlier line. So Niemann does king f2, king d5, king e3, and knight takes e5. And now Carlsen smoothly manages to convert this endgame to a victory. So king f4, knight check. Notice you cannot play king takes f5 because knight d4 check and the rook is lost. So king e3, king d6, h4, h6, h5, bishop here, takes, bishop here, rook here, king here. I'm just going through it quickly because it's just a pure matter of technique. Rook here, knight d5, and knight f6. King f3, bishop c6 check, king here, and Carlsen goes king f4. He grabs the g4 pawn, h5 pawn as well, and knight takes b6. Black is just winning. King here, rook e7, and knight to e4. Rook e5 check, and knight g5. Rook here, and now the king comes out, and rook e5, king f6. Check, and king goes to the b7 pawn. The b7 pawn is what you want. So rook check, king here, rook here, threatening rook f6 check, followed by rook takes h6. So knight e6, king here, bishop here, and h5. H4, king here, h3, rook f3, knight here, and rook h6, and bishop d7, knight f7, rook here, bishop to c6, rook here, h2, and Niemann somehow has rounded off the h2 pawn, but he is losing the e4 pawn. Rook takes h2, bishop here, and knight check, king here, knight c6, and b5. Check, and Carlsen does this flawlessly. Here, queens takes, king here, and the bishop just retreats, king here, and knight b5. And in this position, Niemann resigned. So now the score is 3.5 in favor of Carlsen. So let's move on to the next game. The fifth encounter was in the Charity Cup, round 13 in February 2022, with Carlsen having the white pieces and Niemann having the black pieces. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, d3, bishop c5, castles, h3, d6, c3, a5, rook e1, h6, d4, and bishop b6. And Carlsen, in his game against Nakamura in Crypto Cup 2021, played the move bishop e3, and he went on to win the game. Here, he deviates by playing bishop to b3. Niemann goes rook e8, bishop c2, and Niemann plays d5 over here. Takes, and bishop b3, queen d6, knight bd2. And here, the easiest way for black to equalize is by playing the move e takes d4. Rook takes e8, knight takes e8, knight c4, queen f6, takes, pawn takes pawn, and bishop f5. And black equalizes. Next move, rook to d8 is going to come, and black is totally fine over here. However, in the game, for knight bd2, Niemann makes the mistake. He pushes his pawn to e4. This is a mistake because it allows the knights to jump forward. Carlsen goes knight c4, queen here, and knight fe5. And now white has a clear advantage thanks to his powerful knights. Bishop e6, bishop f4, and knight d5. Carlsen again calculates everything to perfection, and he plays the move rook takes e4. It looks like black can play the move f5 and white would be in trouble. However, Carlsen is very sure of this. Niemann goes f5 and Carlsen does knight takes knight, pawn takes. And here he happily sacrifices the exchange. Rook takes, and bishop to e5. And black's position is falling apart. The bishop on b6 is out of play. The knight on d5 and the rook on e6 is in a pin. And this bishop is out of play. Bishop on e5 is like a monster. e5 square is an outpost. Considering all these factors, white is definitely winning over here. And we'll see how Carlsen converts this. Queen g5, queen f3, rook to d8, and he does knight takes b6, c takes b6, and c4. Niemann does not want to move it away because c5 is coming. So yeah, he does rook takes bishop, takes back, knight f4. And Carlsen simply goes c5 check, king here, and h4. The queens are also traded off, g3, knight check, king here, and notice that the queen cannot move away. The knight will be captured on h3, so black is forced to play queen g4, takes, and Carlsen happily exchanges. Carlsen happily wins the pawn on e6. Knight g5, e6, king here, and simply e7. Rook e8, rook e1, and knight f3, simply rook e3. Knight d4, and the second pawn goes. Knight f5 and rook e6 check. And in this position, Niemann resigned. Score is now 4.5 in favor of Carlsen. Let's move on to the next one. So, sixth game was played in the round 1 of the FTX Crypto Cup held in Miami, Florida in August 2022. Carlsen plays with the white pieces and Niemann plays with the black pieces. e4, c5, knight f3, and knight c6. And Niemann plays the same line which Carlsen himself had used successfully in his World Championship match against Caruana. Bishop b5, g6. And Carlsen goes for the Rosalind defense. And castles, bishop g7, rook e1, knight f6, e5, knight d5, knight here, knight c7. All this is theory, so I'm just going quickly. Takes knight e4. White is attacking the pawn on c5, so b6 and knight check. Black cannot take it because white will take with the e pawn, and again it is a check. So black goes king f8 and knight returns back. Bishop g4, d3, and knight e6. And in this position, knight e to d2 is the main line, or I would say main move for white over here. But instead, Carlsen plays the sideline with the move knight e to g5. And black does knight takes and bishop takes. Black goes queen d5 and rook e4, bishop f5, and Carlsen played this move pawn to c4. Just by looking at it, the pawn on d3 has become a backward pawn, and you can say that all of black's pieces will try to attack the d3 pawn. This is not a great game. Instead, Carlsen maybe could have taken a draw by playing something like rook e1, and when Niemann goes bishop g4, you can just go back and repeat it. This is a possibility, but I'm not sure if it crossed anyone's minds. Anyway, yeah, Carlsen played c4 over here, queen e6, and rook to e3. Niemann goes h6, bishop f4, and g5, and bishop g3, and rook to d8. The d3 pawn is weak, and it needs constant support. So Carlsen goes h3, king g8, a3, and king h7. So since the center is closed, black can take his own sweet time to bring this king to safe and then bring the h8 rook into activity. And Carlsen goes b4. He's trying to create some stir on the queen side, but Niemann doesn't bother about the double pawns. He just doubles his rooks. He goes rook d7. Pawn takes one, and queen to b3. Rook h8, rook d1, and queen g6. And already we can see that all of black's pieces are attacking the pawn on d3, and the position is already very difficult for white. And in this position, Carlsen played the move knight to e1. That is a much better move for white over here, which is the move pawn to e6. Instead of giving up the d3 pawn, you can sacrifice the e6 pawn. So Stockfish says that after bishop takes e6, you can go knight e5, bishop takes, and bishop takes. And white might survive this. However, black definitely has the upper hand over here. Instead of e6, Carlsen played knight to e1. He's just bringing his knight behind, and he's trying to defend the d3 pawn. Now we notice that black can continue this attack on the king side. Niemann does h5. And Carlsen goes back knight to f3. The world champion just wastes two moves with the knight by going to e1 and then back to f3. And Niemann goes h4. And now white is losing. These pieces are very passive and they do not have any active possibilities. Carlsen again plays bishop h2, and again the move for white would be to play e6 over here. Again, sacrifice the pawn and put your knight on e5. Somehow you're trying to activate the pieces. For example, the bishop takes e6, knight e5, bishop takes. Black would probably play g4. Black should be winning over here, but there are definitely chances for white over here to save his game. Coming back to the game after h4, Carlsen played bishop to h2. Just by looking at it, the play becomes very passive for white. So Niemann does e6. White will never be able to play e6 hereafter. So Carlsen does queen c3, bishop f8, and knight e1. And g4. White is lost. H takes g4, bishop takes g4, f3, bishop f5, and Carlsen does f4. Somehow I do not like this move, but anyway, yeah, bishop h6, queen a5, queen g4, and Carlsen played with f3. And he must have missed the move by Niemann. Niemann plays this nice tactical shot, which is bishop to e4, and Carlsen is losing. Queen takes e5, bishop takes f3, knight takes h3. The attack is just killing white's king. Queen f2 and rook takes d3, takes, knight e1, and rook takes a3, queen b2, rook e3, king f2, and simply bishop takes f4. And that is Niemann's big tournament victory over Carlsen. And let's see what Niemann has to say about this.
This is the most simple and
he's resigned. Wow, what can I say?
What a result.
Phenomenal, right? Phenomenal.
What a result. Yeah, you said it, David. Incredible start to the day for Hans Niemann, the lowest rated player in the tournament, with the black pieces, a win against world #1 Magnus Carlsen. And now I'm curious to hear some reactions from Hans in Miami.
Hans, yesterday was a terrible day for you, and today you start out with a masterpiece. How would you summarize it?
Chess speaks for itself.
Is it something special doing this against Magnus, Hans?
Seventh game between Carlsen and Niemann was played in the round 2 of the FTX Crypto Cup, with Niemann playing with the white pieces and Carlsen playing with the black pieces. So Niemann plays e4 and Carlsen responds with the French defense. e4, d5, knight d2, c5. So they are playing the French Tarrasch variation. And after knight gf3, takes, knight c6, bishop b5, takes, bishop d3, bishop d6, queen e2, knight e7. And white plays e5 and black goes bishop c7. White castles, and Carlsen plays the move pawn to c5. This looks like a very natural move, but I'm not sure why people hardly play the move c5. Maximum number of games are recorded with the move knight to g6. Anyway, let's move on. So Carlsen plays c5, Niemann goes c4, bishop c6, knight f3, d takes c4, and bishop takes c4. And black has achieved equality already, and black castles. And in this position, the best move for white is to play the move bishop to g5. And black might play bishop takes f3, and white would have to play g takes f3 because the queen on e2 is defending the e5 pawn. Although I still prefer black on this position, but at least it's equal. Coming to the game, Niemann makes a mistake. And this seems to be a crucial mistake, which Carlsen exploits immediately. Niemann plays bishop to e3. So now you might notice the difference. When the bishop is on e3, it is preventing the queen on e2 from defending the pawn on e5. It actually blocks this. So now Carlsen immediately does bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, and bishop takes e5. And now after bishop takes c5, you notice that both the bishops are not defended. They are hanging. So Carlsen goes queen c7, and bishop takes e7, queen takes e7. And now the pawn on b2 is under attack. And there are threats of playing bishop takes h2 check, queen h4, threatening h4 and c4, and the pawn on b2. So In this position, Niemann played queen to e2 and Carlsen did queen c7. So Carlsen is attacking the pawn on h2 as well as the bishop on c4. Niemann goes g3, bishop takes pawn, rook b1 and bishop d4. And now black is a clear pawn up and rook here, rook a c8. Bishop cannot move out because the rook on c1 is hanging. So Niemann does queen e4 and queen d6. King g2, g6. It is always a good strategy to place your pawns on the color of your opponent's bishop. That way you are restricting his bishop's activity, and at the same time your bishop controls all the dark squares. So rook c2 and bishop d6, bishop b3, and Carlsen trades off one pair of rooks. And next he trades off the queens as well. In order to win the game, black must have one pair of rooks on the board. And the reason behind this is you are reducing all the counter activity for white. And only with one rook on the board, white can hardly generate any sort of counter activity. And you can use that rook to attack white's weaknesses. Rook c3 check, king e2, and Carlsen plays a very good move, which is a very standard move in all these kind of positions. Carlsen plays g5. Rook f1, and he goes king g7. Rook goes to g1, and now he goes g4. And now he has fixed up all of black's pawns on the dark squares, f2, g3, h2. And black has a lot of space as well. So Niemann does h3, and no, you should not take that pawn. So Carlsen just goes rook f3, threatening the pawn on f2. Niemann does rook f1, and Carlsen goes h5. Pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. And now, if you notice, the king and rook are tied down to the defense of the f2 pawn. So black king is now all set to move up the board. King e1, a5, king e2, king f6, king e5, king d6. And Carlsen just keeps on improving his position, and there is nothing white can do about it. Bishop d4 and e4. Black plays e3. And now the pawns on f2 and g3 are falling apart. Takes, give a check and take this, and king f6 just attacking the bishop. When the bishop moves, king g5 again attacking the bishop. And now simply rook e7. And black's threat is to play rook to h7, winning the bishop. So white plays king g2 and simply rook check and rook take. When rook f2 check first, and then rook takes a2. And in this position, Niemann resigned. And Carlsen leads the head-to-head score with 6.5, 1.5. Let's move on to the next game. The 8th game was played in the third round of the FTX Crypto Cup, with Magnus playing with the white pieces and Niemann playing with the black pieces. And here, Carlsen starts the game with an amusing move. He plays a3. I'm not sure what to even name this move, but yeah. Carlsen places, it should be good, I guess. d5, d4, and it transposes into some sort of a Slav defense. Knight h4. And in these kind of positions, usually white would have the pawn on e3 instead of a3. And takes, g3, knight g2. And already Stockfish prefers black because black's pieces can go to good positions, and the white bishop on f1 and the knight on g2, they are not well coordinated. So yeah, black should be better. Queen here, e3, bishop here, knight f4, and bishop g6. Knight takes g6, h takes g6. And black is threatening to play bishop takes g3 check. So white has to go king f2, a6, and king g2. So king safety, black's king is definitely better. Piece activity, black's piece activity is definitely better. Only thing is that white has two bishops, but in this kind of position, the two bishops aren't of much use. So black is definitely better here. Carlsen goes g4, and Niemann does a very good move. He plays pawn to e5. He is breaking open the center. If your opponent does not follow the opening principles, then you need to punish him by opening up the center. And here black has a clear advantage. Carlsen does g5, and Niemann takes on d4. Pawn takes d4, and Niemann does knight h5. And in this position, Carlsen does knight takes d5. What move would you play as black? Queen d8 or queen d4? One of them is right and one of them is wrong. And in this position, Niemann made the wrong choice. He did queen takes d4. And why is queen takes d4 bad? It's obvious. White's king is very weak, and black is definitely going to be attacking white. So in any kind of attack, you would definitely need your most powerful piece on the board. So you should not trade off queens, but you should keep the queens on the board. So queen d8 is definitely the best move. And let me just give you a sample variation. So bishop c4, knight e7, rook e1, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, and knight f4 check. And white needs to take it, and black takes it, and black is just winning. The pawn on g5 falls, and later on, black can double up the rooks on the d file, and attack is just crushing. The pawn on h2 is also very weak. Black is winning. But unfortunately, in the game, after knight takes d5, Niemann played queen takes d4. And as we all know, Carlsen enjoys these endgames, and he immediately takes his lifeline and he does queen takes d4. Knight takes d4, rook b1, rook here, bishop d3, rook a8, and rook d1. And Carlsen is back in the game. The position is now equal. Black does knight e6, bishop e4, king f8, bishop here, knight check, knight takes. And here, maybe black should have tried bishop takes f4, but Niemann did knight takes f4. This natural move is a mistake, and white is now going to become a pawn up. Just one small mistake, and Magnus doesn't let it go. He cleanly finishes off the game. So king f1, pawn to b6, and bishop here, and bishop takes a6. White has the double bishops and an extra pawn. Carlsen now easily converts this to a win. So let me just go through it quickly. Bishop c4, attacking the pawn on f3, bishop c3, knight e6, a4, and king here, h4, knight here, king here, attacking the pawn on h4. So Carlsen does rook h1, bishop check, king here, and now Carlsen goes king g3, knight to e6, and rook e1. Bishop check, king here, and f6. And now Carlsen goes rook e4, f5, rook c4, trading off one pair of rooks, check, king here. And now Carlsen plays a very good move. He does rook takes e5. Black cannot take with the pawn because white can play bishop e5, attacking the rook and the knight. So rook takes e5 and bishop e4. So he's able to trade off a pair of minor pieces as well. Check, king here. Now he just pushes his pawn forward. 3, knight c6. And once the rooks are traded off, the endgame is just g6 and f5 are falling. And yeah, Carlsen does not even bother to capture the f5 pawn. He just pushes his h6 pawn. In this position, Niemann resigned. So the score is 6.5, 1.5 in favor of Magnus. Let's move on to the next one. The 9th encounter between Carlsen and Niemann was played in the 3rd round of the Crypto Cup. And in this game, Niemann was playing with white pieces and Carlsen was playing with the black pieces. And Magnus is playing the modern bar perp defense. Knight f3, d6, bishop e2, knight f6, cancels. And in this position, the normal move for black is to play bishop g4 or knight c6 or pawn to e5, or maybe even pawn to c6. But the move played by Carlsen, I've never seen it earlier. He plays e6. White plays h3 and he plays b6. And Magnus is playing some sort of a hippo opening. Niemann tries e5, takes, and Carlsen goes for the queen exchange immediately, and knight d7, attacking the pawn on e5. And this natural move, knight b5, played by Niemann, is actually a mistake. Carlsen actually played the move bishop to a6, which is actually not the best move. And in this position, if possible, I want you to think and try to find out the best move for black. Carlsen did not play the best move for black over here. So Carlsen played the move bishop to a6, spinning the knight against the bishop. But in fact, that is a much stronger move, which gives black the advantage immediately. And that is a6. And now you realize that if white plays knight takes c7, black can play rook a7. And the knight on c7 is trapped. So the knight has to go back and you can win the pawn on e5. But Carlsen played bishop a6 and white played bishop f4. So it's still equal. Rook c8, a4, bishop b7, a5, a6. And here Niemann blundered with a takes b6. It does look very promising. Yeah. Carlsen played pawn takes and rook a7. This does look like very strong move for white. Because if you do rook takes a7, then pawn takes a7. For example, if you do rook takes a7, pawn takes d7. And when the knight moves, the knight on d7 can be taken by the rook. But Carlsen finds the best move for black, and that is winning move, knight takes b6. And Niemann has to do rook takes b7, and Carlsen does knight c6. And now suddenly you notice that the rook on b7 is trapped. Black is going to play either knight d8 or knight a5, and there is no square for the rook to go to. In the game, Niemann tried bishop takes b5, knight a5, rook takes, pawn takes, knight d4. And it's just a matter of technique for Carlsen. Knight here, bishop here, knight e3, c4, takes, and rook a3. Rook d3, bishop c5, attacking the pawn on f2, bishop here, rook a8, and k2, rook f3, rook b2, and now the second rook is going to come inside. Rook a2, bishop h4, and simply g5. Bishop is confounded to passivity. Bishop g3 and rook a3. And in this position, Niemann resigned. The score is 7.5, 1.5 in favor of Carlsen. Now let's move on to the next game. The 10th encounter between them is the highly controversial game where Hans was accused of cheating. Niemann played perfect chess and defeats Carlsen with the black pieces. Let's look at this one. Carlsen plays white and Niemann plays black. So Carlsen starts d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, and bishop d4. They start with the Nimzo Indian, and Carlsen goes g3. This is a less frequently played move. There was actually one game played by Carlsen against Wesley So in a Blitz game in 2018, which Hans Niemann claimed to have seen it before the game and prepared against it. Would anyone really prepare using a Blitz game? I do not know. So, black castles, bishop g2, d5, a3, takes, d takes e4, knight f3, c5, castles, takes, and queen takes d4. White has the two bishops, and black goes knight c6, queen takes e4, e5, and bishop g5, and black goes h6. And Carlsen does rook f d1. He's gaining a tempo on the queen, and suddenly black plays this excellent move, which is bishop to e6. And this is the best move and recommended by Stockfish. So now Carlsen did rook takes d8. As we saw in the earlier games, Carlsen is always happy to go into endgames. And bishop takes c4, he trades rooks, and he does bishop takes f6, g takes f6. So this position is slightly favorable for black, but yeah, white would be able to hold on. King f1, rook d8. And Niemann puts his rook on d8, and he puts it on the open side. Again, this is the best move for black. Carlsen does king e1 and knight a5. The knight is trying to come to b3 or c4. Again, this was the best move for black. Rook d1 and rook c8. Niemann refuses the trade and puts his rook on c8. He is going to attack the c3 pawn later on. Knight d2, bishop e6. And until now, Niemann has been playing only the best moves, which are Stockfish's top choice. Carlsen goes c4 and bishop takes c4. Knight takes, rook takes. And Niemann is a clear pawn up and has a winning position. Rook d8 check, king g7, bishop d5, rook c7, rook a8 and a6, rook b8 and f5. And now Niemann converts this extra pawn into a victory with this flawless play. g8, e4, g4, rook c5, knight c4, e4, knight d6, and he does pawn takes pawn, rook d7, and here he plays this excellent move, which is pawn to e3. Brilliant move. The threat is to go rook c1 check, and if white does rook takes knight, rook c1 check, rook d1, and you can even do rook takes rook first, and after king takes d1, pawn takes pawn, and you are winning. Then Niemann played e3, Carlsen was forced to do f takes e3, knight e4, king f1, rook check, king here, rook here, bishop takes f7, rook takes e2 check, king here, check. They repeat it, and now Niemann does king f6, bishop d5, and Niemann goes for the most tactical response. He does rook d2, pinning the bishop against the rook. And Carlsen does rook check, king here, and rook goes back. So now Carlsen is threatening to play bishop takes e4. For instance, black can play something like king f6, king g5. But again, Niemann chooses the Stockfish's top choice, which is knight to g5. Bishop check, king here, and the tactics is favoring black. King here and knight takes rook. a5. Carlsen is trying his best to get rid of the b7 and a6 pawns. Niemann does king e5, preventing bishop d5. King here, knight check, knight takes pawn. And now Carlsen tries bishop e6, trying to go bishop c8, bishop takes b7, but the knight is just in time. Bishop here, knight b6, bishop takes pawn, knight e5, takes, and knight to c6. And the knight is able to gobble up the a5 pawn. Bishop d5, it's just a temporary lock. Black can just go h5, h4, and king e5. Now the bishop has to move and the knight escapes, and black is just winning. So in this position, Carlsen resigned. A completely flawless victory by Niemann over the world champion, and this raised the suspicion of cheating. Also, there were two earlier instances of online cheating by Niemann, which he himself had acknowledged. He cheated once in a Title Tuesday online event by using computer assistance, and once more earlier when he tried to boost his online rating so that he could try to play against stronger players. We have one more game between the two. Let's look at it as well. The 11th encounter between the two was played in the round 3 of the Julius Baer Cup in September 2022. Niemann played with white and Magnus played with black. d4, knight f6, c4, and to everyone's surprise, Magnus resigned here. This clearly implied that Magnus does not want to play Niemann, and the cheating drama continued further. I assume Magnus must be having the following thought: I can play 1a3, 1g6, and all odd moves to defeat Niemann. The guy who lost him earlier in these games might not be able to play the perfect chess which he played in game 10. So he must be using some sort of unfair means. I believe this must be Magnus's train of thought. My thought about this incident: we can see from Niemann's online games and tournament games that he indeed is a guy with GM strength. In most of the games, we have seen Carlsen outplaying Niemann, and Niemann did make mistakes. Except for the one game where Carlsen was outplayed from the start, the rest of the games had errors. The one game does look a lot suspicious, I agree. Coming to the game in which Niemann defeated Carlsen with that flawless play, the following things do look suspicious to me. The first thing I noticed was this extraordinary play. Carlsen was outwitted in all phases of the game, opening, middle game, and the end game. It was Niemann from the start till the finish. The second thing that I find suspicious is the exactness of the moves. Most of the moves are matching with Stockfish's moves. I find that a little bit hard to digest. The third thing which I noticed was in the interview, Niemann said that he looked at the game between Carlsen versus Wesley So in 2018 and he prepared against it. The game which Niemann said is actually a Blitz game. It's not a tournament game, but a Blitz game. So I find it hard to believe that someone looked at a Blitz game and prepared against it, especially against Carlsen. One thing which is in favor of Niemann was that there is indeed a game by Carlsen and Wesley So in 2018. Maybe we can give the benefit of the doubt to Niemann on this one. The fourth thing which I find astonishing was analysis of the games given by Niemann. Like when I see Pragnananda or Levon Aronian or Ivanchuk or any other top GM for that example. They give out lots of variations and lots of analysis. But Niemann in his games, I felt that his analysis was somewhat a bit superficial. The depth of the moves aren't there, like just 2 or 3 move calculations, not more than that. I find that a little bit hard to believe, but maybe he was nervous during the interview and he had forgotten most of the lines that he saw. So it could be a possibility as well. If we notice any such similar games in his past or in the future, then we definitely have a case. Once is coincidence, but twice or thrice is not a coincidence. Then there would definitely be a case over here. But before we get a second or third game as evidence, let's not judge anyone. And imagine calling someone as a cheater would definitely harm that player's reputation. And I would refrain from such things. People can cheat and we can detect it by their play. But if a GM cheats, it becomes really hard for us to detect it. We cannot just look at one game and say that Niemann cheated and wait to see if any further games are played this way. Then we can come to a conclusion whether he's using computer assistance or he is playing on his own. Anyway, I have learned a lot from these games. Let me tell you what I have learned. First point, you can sacrifice your exchange if the resulting position is easier to play with. Do not consider material to be sacred. Second point, calculation plays a vital role. In many games, we have seen Carlsen outcalculate Niemann and exploit his mistakes. Number 3, the immaculate technique with which each player converted their winning positions into a win. And number 4, endgames are very important. You can learn it by looking at Magnus's games. And number 5, you can play A3 or any opening and get a good position as long as you play the middle game and the end game well. Number 6, Carlsen always avoided Niemann's opening preparation except for the games he lost. I have given the link for all these games in the description below. Please feel free to give your thoughts and comments and click the like button if you like this video and the subscribe button if you want to watch more such videos. This is Siddharth signing off. Have a great day.